hundreds of workers protested over the new pilot scheme, which paid them £3.75 per delivery. They can now opt out of that and continue with the current pay scheme of £7 an hour plus £1 per delivery. That's after the government said Deliveroo must pay at least the living wage of £7.20 an hour. Well, for workers who continue on the trial, Deliveroo has promised to pay at least £7.50 an hour at peak times, plus tips and petrol. Well, let's examine the wider implications of this with employment lawyer Matt Gingell, who's a partner at Gannons Solicitors in London. Good evening to you, Matt. Now, a lot of this, from what I understand from a legal perspective, comes down to a grey area, really whether workers are treated as employees or self-employed.
Yes, it's really whether they are self-employed or workers or employees. For worker status, you need to have an obligation to provide work or services personally, and there also needs to be a mutual obligation to provide work or accept work. For employment status, the same things apply, but also you need an element of control and other factors. And this is obviously relevant in terms of rights, because workers, for example, have rights to, for example, the minimum national wage and holiday, and employees have additional rights such as sick pay, statutory sick pay.
But there'll be some industries, and Deliveroo is probably smack in the middle of it, isn't it, where this line is just very blurred. Uber is another one who's been in the press for similar reasons.
Yes, that's right. I mean, Uber's been in the tribunal, and the decision is reserved. And that again, drivers from Uber have been claiming that they are workers and obviously have additional rights. But it is a grey area, and in many cases, workers are not going to be entirely sure whether they come within those provisions or not.
Well, I can imagine that some workers don't necessarily want to be treated as employees. Some people value the flexibility of being self-employed, don't they?
Yes, I mean, there are going to be large numbers of people who want that flexibility. They want to choose when they work, they want to decide and maybe have other work at other businesses as well. But there are going to be others that are going to want some assurance. They're going to want some consistency. They're going to want to know when they're going to be able to work.
This is part of a wider deliberate crackdown, though, isn't it? I mean, there's been a lot of focus on the way big firms treat their employees. We've had a ruling about Sports Direct today. Yes,
I mean, Sports Direct, they've, I think, agreed with HMRC and Unite that they're going to backdate a large amount of pay for workers, I think going back to 2012. And so, yes, there is a crackdown, and certainly with the national living wage coming in, the government have also been anxious about businesses, for example, stopping benefits. So yes, there's a general crackdown
perhaps
in
the
that.
Start of more things to come. I mean, there's the talk, isn't there, about commerce moving more towards what people call the gig economy in the States, where there are more independent contractors. How do you preserve what is good about the flexibility of that for consumers, for the businesses, for employees, while also protecting some sort of level of basic rights?
Yes, it's difficult. I mean, you can't have everything. If you want the flexibility, then obviously there aren't going to be those additional rights that come with it. But I think that it does seem to be a movement now towards more people working on a self-employed contractor basis. But at the same time, it's important that the government makes sure that workers' rights aren't being violated.